Welcome to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and I have on my show a guest that I will be working with very closely, really starting in January. Matt Wells, welcome to Entrepreneur State of Mind. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dale?
Great. And so Matt is the director of the SBDC of Northwest Jersey that is going to be part of Fairleigh Dickinson University, really within the Rothman Institute, where I'm the executive director. And so Matt and I are going to be working on this SBDC program. So I'm excited to have him on the show so he can really talk about what SBDC does and how SBDC can really be of service to small businesses for free. And so if you have a business, listen up, because there are SBDCs everywhere. So Matt, I always like to begin with where people grew up and how they got to do what they're doing. So where were you born and where did you go to school and how did you get into the SBDC movement?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Minnesota. I was born and raised in St. Cloud, Minnesota. My father was a professor at St. Cloud State University. So I really kind of grew up in the shadow of the university. And like I said, I was born and raised there, spent a lot of years, multiple degrees at St. Cloud State. And during that time, I also owned and operated a small business through my undergraduate and graduate studies. And then once I finalized my MBA at St. Cloud State, I was brought into the SBDC locally as a student intern. And that sort of sparked a new, I guess, drive inside of me for entrepreneurships. And I really started to understand how small businesses operated, how they grew, how they, really took on the world around them. And I grew up within the SBDC, and I worked my way up through student intern, on my way to consultant. And once I moved out the East Coast here, I saw an opportunity here at this center, and I came on as director and took over here. So I've sort of grown up and grown in within the SBDC network.
Well, and that's great experience. And as I've gotten to know you, that experience really comes in very handy. My personal experience, I got my MBA from Wharton, and we're looking at what kind of summer jobs and this SBDC opportunity for me to be a consultant at the Wharton Small Business Development Center, and that was my best experience. It got me into consulting. I worked after that for 11 years at Deloitte Consulting, but really developed this interest in entrepreneurship, and so here I am, running the Entrepreneurial Center with a show on entrepreneurship. And so I really credit the SBDC for a lot of the stuff that I'm doing as you do for the stuff that you're doing. So Matt, what is the SBDC? And I'm starting to call it the SBDC movement because I think entrepreneurship is growing. I think, if you're an entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur, and you don't know about the SBDC, you've got to do some more research. So what is the SBDC and where can you find one?
So SBDCs, they're located in every state, every territory in the country. It's based on population. So like in the state of New Jersey, we're one of 12 centers here. So throughout the country, depending on where you are, you'll either have a center in your backyard or a satellite office possibly. And usually they're attached to institutions of higher learning, so community college, universities. Sometimes they're on campus, sometimes they're kind of in like an in-between where they may be in a downtown, like a growing area of the downtown where they can kind of connect the academia world with the business world. So that's pretty much where you'll find SBDCs. They're kind of that in-between between academia and the business community. But pretty much what we do depends on the day. So some days, we can be therapists, but most of the days, we're straight on business consultants. We have at our centers usually a vast array of consultants that are specialized in certain areas. So at this center, I have people that are specialized in e-commerce and social media. I've got other consultants that deal with international trade and accounting and bookkeeping. We've got ex-bankers and CPAs. And we every center sort of brings it in a sort of a generalized, specialized, pool of consultants to aid their community with whatever they're looking for. So every center is a little bit different. We focus around Morristown, which is fairly urban, suburban, and then we also deal with the rural areas, and it's also in Warrens County. So each center has to tailor their clientele and their offerings of their consultants. We also provide usually free or little to no cost training and seminars and webinars throughout the year too. So our consulting is always free because that's funded directly through the SBA, and then depending on the tailoring of our services through trainings and seminars, we can also do things that way as well.
It really is, and it's funded by the federal government, right? So our tax dollars pay for this. So it's something that we should take advantage of. And so Matt, do you talk to businesses that are just getting started? Do you talk to people with business ideas? Obviously, you talk to experienced businesses, but what is how far along does someone have to be before they can approach you and the SBDC?
Pretty much in any stage of the business life cycle. Majority of our time, probably 50 to 60% of our time is spent on people kind of in that pre-venture state. So they have their idea, they're looking for market research, or looking for somebody to say, okay, what are the next steps? How do I do a business plan? How do I form the business? How do I seek financing? So, majority of our time is kind of spent in people in that stage, but we also do spend a lot of time with helping people grow their business. So once you get started, you have revenue coming in, we can help you with marketing plans and long-term strategies and those sorts of things. We also do focus on turnaround. So if we're working with banks and lenders that have clients that, they ran into some troubles, we can come in, open up the books, reevaluate, give them some ideas moving forward. And then also businesses on the other end that they're looking to, either sell the business or put up a plan to pass it on to their children or grandchildren and those sorts of things. So we deal with pretty much the entire life cycle of business.
Well, and that's fascinating. And so when you're a business, you're a new business, you learn about the local SBDC. How do you reach out to them? Do you have to sign forms? Do you just call them up? Do you just show up? How does that work?
Yeah, so typically most of our clients, they kind of come through our online portal. Right. You can do that going to NJSBDC.com. There's a green tab right in the middle that says Request for Counseling, and it connects you straight to your local SBDC office based on which county you reside in or do business in. That's the main way. Otherwise, you can give us a call at any time, and we can help you as well. But most people, we have to submit a form. It's an SBA regulated form that they have to fill out that grabs demographic information and things like that, because we're funded by the SBA, so they want to know who we're helping in the first place. So that gets all the information up front. Once you get into the system, then usually you're connected either to a director or a consultant after that to start working on whatever assistance you're needing. And
so now, can you be too big? I mean, is there a limit? Is this the SBA small business size, or how big a business is qualified?
Well, it's a couple different terms. The federal definition is 500 or fewer employees, but they have extended that now based on revenue. So there is a tool online through the SBA that you can type in which industry you're in, how much you've done in sales, how many employees you have, and actually determine now even farther if you qualify as a small business or not. But most typically you're looking at fairly large, up to a fairly large amount of employees that we do service with our services here.
Interesting. And how long do you typically work with a business?
That comes into play with where they are in the life cycle. So typically, we do a lot of work with businesses on the front end. So before they get open, of helping them work on the business plan, seeking financing, getting everything in place. Once they do open the doors, then it's helping them figure out their HR situation, doing all those things, the grand opening, marketing, and then once they kind of get open about 6 months down the road, then they tend to start operating on their own, and then they may cycle back every 6 months, a year, kind of depending, check-in type of sessions. But that's typically kind of how we see it go. That once we spend a lot of energy up front getting them open, and then they sort of spread their wings, go out on their own, and as things come up in the course of business, which they will, that's when they tend to come back with those really specific questions moving forward, which is always kind of fun.
So once you sign up, you're in the database and you become a client, right? And then you can come back as needed based on availability, et cetera, et cetera?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And we like to, at this center, we really emphasize homework. So when a client does come into the center, when they meet with a consultant, the consultant usually will give them, a couple things of homework before they meet for the next session. Because we are taxpayer funded, we pay attention to that. So it's not just, we're hanging out and having coffee once a week, that we say, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z. When that's completed, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then we're going to meet back in a week or two or a month or whatever it might be, and then keep moving forward. And then usually we kind of like to establish, mile markers with the client. Say, okay, this is the homework for the next time, and this is where we're going. So if we're trying to get them financing, it's okay, we need to start working on the business plan. So let's get the first version drafted. We'll come back, we'll break it down, and we'll build from there. So that's typically how we operate here.
So I want to get, probably in the second half of the show, we'll talk about maybe even some case examples of some of the projects that you've seen over the years in New Jersey, outside of New Jersey, et cetera, so people have a real sense of how the SBDC has helped folks. But we'd love to really talk about the behind the scenes. So the SBDCs at universities, it can be at Fairleigh Dickinson University. Talk to me, because some people may be at universities. How can professors or students at a university where there's an SBDC, how can they interact most effectively with the SBDC so there's a mutually beneficial relationship?
Yeah, as far as professors, oftentimes professors are some of the most valuable SBDC consultants.
Oh, wonderful.
Because they're highly specialized. They know their field incredibly well. They may not be meeting with the people that are in the beginning stages of opening the business, but maybe they need access to someone that really understands information management systems or something like that. That they can make those connections with high-level people that work in that field, have degrees in that field. So that's a great way for professors to be involved with SBDCs. And then from the student side, my experience, that's how I got into the SBDC as a student intern. But oftentimes SBDCs will have student interns that come in for special projects. They may be admin assistants that are in and around the SBDC, so they get experience with all these clients coming in, all these industries, all these businesses. They may be brought in for very specific projects, either on the undergraduate level or the graduate level. They may also be in my old center. We had a program where we would bring in newly graduated MBA students that just finished a degree to get some real world experience in the SBDC, during the summer before they started to hit the job market. So there's a lot of ways you can integrate university resources into the SBDC.
Well, wonderful. And again, I just think about, I was an MBA student, and doing that, it was just a great way to apply the theory that I was learning in class to a real world application, which was really, really, really fantastic. And so as an SBDC, the federal funding is not sufficient in and of itself. We raise money from other sponsors, and so over the years, what kinds of organizations, companies sponsor an SBDC, and why would they want to sponsor an SBDC?
Some of our best sponsors, across the country, SBDCs are really kind of connected to local bank branches, and even to larger banks, and that's a great way to get sponsorship and funding to the SBDC of hosting events and things like that, because a lot of our clients that we work with are going to be in front of a bank shortly looking for a loan. So that's a great way for the banks to not only reinvest in their communities, but also help build their brand image as well by working with SBDCs, because every bank's a little different on what sorts of businesses they work with, what sorts of collateral, what sort of assets, those sort of industries that they do actually work with and loan money to. That when SBDCs have a close working relationship with those financial institutions, it makes it a lot more successful for clients, because we can make recommendations and say, here are some possible lenders out there that you can possibly go to talk to for your industry. Wonderful,
wonderful. Well, we're at the halfway point. So we're going to take a couple-minute break for a commercial break. Then we're going to come back with Matt Wells of the FDU SBDC.
My gifts are from the Real because I always feel very confident in what I get. I know it's been authenticated. The thrill of the hunt. They have things I never thought I'd see again.
I'm gonna relish the gifts and the smiles.
Top designers, up to 90% off retail. All I want for Christmas is Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Prada, Rolex, Cartier.
Real stuff at a really good price.
Unwrap the unexpected with The Real.
Shop over 10,000 new arrivals daily. Get 20% off at The Real. Terms apply.
More than 200,000 people in the U.S. who have died from COVID-19. Hundreds more die every day, still an alarming rate of loss.
Masks matter. These masks, they matter. It matters, it saves lives, it prevents the spread of the disease.
Welcome back to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, with Matt Wells of the soon-to-be FDU Small Business Development Center. And it really is a great program. If you have your own business, you've got to at least know the local Small Business Development Center. And so what I'd like to do, Matt, now is talk about maybe some real life examples, and obviously don't mention the names of the companies, but say around marketing. You know, you've worked with so many different companies yourself. If I had a company and I said, well, I really don't know what I need to do with marketing, you know, could you give an example of a company facing that kind of situation?
I'll give you a couple here. I'll give you one on the small end and one on a little bit larger side. So actually one of our best clients, they came in early in the pandemic. He was a service business. He was a face-to-face service business, and he could no longer, you know, perform his services with his business because he couldn't meet with people. And he kind of hit dire straits, and he really didn't know what to do. So we not only helped him get access to fill out forms with PPP and do all those sorts of things to find some financial relief, we also help him reevaluate his marketing proposition. So we really reinforced, you know, not only the value of what he's doing, but really understanding his customers. And I was joking with him the other day because he sent me an email, and I said, you know, think about the first email you sent me and now the email you sent me now. And all you were doing is talking about adding value to your business and how much more you've understood your customers. And from that, he's launched a new website, a social media campaign on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and he's really sort of embraced marketing where he never ever thought about marketing prior to the pandemic, and really prior to us having long conversations of, you know, if your business is here, how do we create value to bring more customers in? And through all this, he's had a huge intake of new clients coming in, and his business is really getting set up to grow in the future because he's embraced marketing. So that's on the small side, and from the larger side,
Matt
said, look,
Matt, before you go to that one, you know, I mean, you know, it strikes me that you're like a hospital for small businesses, and that you know, I hear the sense of pride on your, you know, in your voice about being able to help them. They were kind of sick, and now they're not only well, they're doing you know, better than ever, and so you really help the businesses turn around. I think that's really cool. And so you also helped with the PPP applications.
Yes.
Wow. And so again, just think about those businesses that were smart enough to take advantage of an SBDC resource, were able to get some support in something that was pretty complex for many businesses. So that's the smaller side. What's the other example?
Another example is, you know, on the larger side, one of our great e-commerce consultants, he's been working with a client to redevelop the website and really push that side of it. So, you know, they're already up and going, they're a successful business, but he's driving a whole new attitude towards, they did some online sales prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic has really sort of made them reevaluate that they have to be online. And they have to really focus and put a lot of effort and assets into understanding marketing, e-commerce, and driving sales online. So that's from the larger side. They're still a very competent, you know, successful business, but they're starting to really reevaluate where their marketing efforts needs to be. So that's one of our great consultants. I've been working with them with some good results here.
Wonderful.
Pushing for e-commerce.
Well, and that's an e-commerce solution. You know, I think probably the majority of businesses have an e-commerce problem, right? Small businesses out there, they really don't know what they're doing and so on. So at a minimum, that kind of e-commerce, you know, that e-commerce advice is so critical. So obviously marketing is one area. Before we get to finance, personnel, have you ever helped them with any kind of personnel issues?
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of the issues that we've seen, especially now, there's a lot of issues with hiring and keeping and retaining staff. And, you know, we've had a lot of philosophical conversations with our clients of, you know, it's more than just the wage, right? There's a lot of things that go into it. So, you know, right now we're having a lot of daily conversations with our clients of, okay, are you taking care of your employees? Are you hiring right? And, you know, if you had people there that you hired that weren't doing the job, whose fault actually is it at the end of the day?
Right.
You know, it's yours as the manager. You hired them or you didn't train them properly. So either find some ways to train them or you need to hire properly. So we have a lot of those kind of philosophical conversations at the moment, especially in light of the issues we're having with staffing across the country.
Yeah, it really is bad, and I imagine that it's even worse for small businesses.
Yes.
You know, to really try to get, because big businesses are struggling and small businesses are hurting as well. And so So, financing, everybody talks about financing and, I need money, I need investment, I need that. And I know you do some work with it, but there's also a capital group that's part of the statewide SBDC network. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the centers, they're connected to the local lending community, so local branches and things like that. But sometimes you'll have clients that come into the center that are a little bit above what we handle regionally. Right. So, maybe they're looking for venture capitalists, or they're a tech firm looking to, start an IPO. There's a lot of things with that we've established at the state level. It's a group called the Capital Team, and they're high level. They have previous careers in the banking industry and investments, in venture capitalism, and they're CPAs. And we have a big group there that has specialized connections all over the state. So if we can't handle people regionally, if they're very specialized service or need that they're looking for, or the funding opportunity may be more, say, in the softer side, like tech and e-commerce and those sorts of things, that we can also refer up to our capital team and tap into those assets as well.
Interesting. And it's as I understand it, the SBDC network works together. So you're independent groups at different universities, but you collaborate. Talk about the collaboration between the SBDCs.
Yeah, so it's really cool. We've got some new state leadership that's really pushing us to sort of elevate ourselves as a network and be more unified as in our goals here. But also, the SBDC network across the country, it's a pretty tight-knit community. I mean, we're connected to SBDCs all over the country. And we take best practices from every place we can. We have an accreditation board that comes in on a couple-year basis to make sure that our network is still operating the best it can. So it's a great network that not only is just in New Jersey or in your local community, but it's literally across the country. And it's a small network, but it's a great network. And everybody within the SBDC network, I think, across the country, they're here to help small businesses. This isn't a get rich and retire early type of a career. This is a career that you want to help people. You want to help your community. And I think everybody that usually is in the network, they feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really, as I'm learning this network, and Kelly, who's been on my show, is just wonderful. So she really is very open. She, like you, has tremendous experience in the SBDC world and the Small Business Development Center. And the opportunities, and she's an innovator to look at doing things very, very differently to benefit more and more organizations. And so as we start to work together with FDU and the Small Business Development Center, Matt, do you have some thoughts about how we can make this even more successful? I'm competitive. I want this to be the most successful one in New Jersey. So what are some of the innovative things you think we can do and that the audience can look for as we kind of grow this FDU SBDC?
I think number one, it's very important for an SBDC to have such a strong consultant base, because it starts there. Because our job at the end of the day is to serve the clients that are coming through the door. Yeah. So if we have capable consultants that can spread a wide range of their expertise and knowledge, that's where we start, number one. And I think following that then is student engagement, because there's entrepreneurs at heart for students. They're looking to start businesses right now. They're looking to venture out on their own, especially in light of the pandemic. It's made people kind of reevaluate what they want to do with their life. Right. So I think that's the second one is the younger generation, I think, embrace entrepreneurship on a different level. It's a little more free flowing to them than I think other generations have seen it as that. So I think that's the second big step is once we lock down consultants, then the student engagement, and then I think this center can really grow from there.
No, interesting. How do we market it? What you have any thoughts on how do we let folks know about this? I mean, obviously I'm out there. We're members of 17 different chambers across New Jersey. What have been some of the best practices you've seen in the national SBDC network about getting the word out? And I'm going to ask you the same question about sponsorship.
Yeah. So, probably the best way to drive traffic is word of mouth from other entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. You can go out there at every event and hand out flyers and business cards, but when you have somebody that owns a business talking to their friend that owns a business and say, hey, have you talked to them?
Right.
You know, that's the best marketing that we can have. So that's where it all kind of comes back to me, that as long as we're supporting the clients and giving them the best service they can possibly get, or get them directed to the services that they actually need, you know, that's where we really grow organically as a center. But you know, community outreach is a big part of it. Working and having a good relationship with local lenders is another part, because there's a lot of people that will approach banks before they ever talk to us.
Right.
And that's usually not a good sign. If they're looking to get a loan from that business, you want to walk in there prepared, knowing what you're getting into, you know, have all your applications, have your business plan, have everything ready to go to know what you're going to be asking for. So that's a great relationship that we've been building and will continue to build in the future with local lenders to make that referral, because that's really our main pipeline that the SBA is looking for, is our capital infusion that we can get with our clients. So that's a great pipeline for us.
And that's a measuring stick. So this idea of really how much you know, capital have you infused into your network? Is that one of the you know, internal evaluation metrics?
Yeah, that's one of the things the SBA really pushes for us is access to capital. You know, money that we help people get to open their business, invest in their business, invest in their communities. The other major ones are, you know, jobs created, jobs retained. So if we're starting a new business, how many jobs are we helping create? If we're helping somebody turn around their business or grow their business, how many jobs are we helping stay or, you know, keep long term with the business? They also look at, you know, the number of clients served. They also look at demographic groups. So right now they're really looking at women entrepreneurs, veteran entrepreneurs, minority entrepreneurs. Those are big emphasis with the SBA. So they're keeping track of all those things as well. And those are really emphasis that we try to do here.
That's wonderful. And so we've talked a little bit about banks as sponsors. What other industries do you think, or have you seen, are interested in sponsoring an SBDC?
So oftentimes we'll see sponsors that come through in, you know, their marketing firms or their law firms, because, you know, it's a direct way for them to reach their clients on a very, very emotional level, that they're making a connection through the SBDC with those types of clients. So those are often places that we do see sponsorships come through from accounting firms, law firms, marketing firms, you know, corporate, commercial real estate, those sorts of places. Often closely work with SBDCs and sponsor events too.
Yeah, and that's great, because you know, entrepreneurship, you know, gone, as I said, gone are the 30-year jobs of, you know, you go to General Motors, you work there for 30 years, you retire, you get a nice house in Florida, and you do that stuff. Entrepreneurship is here to stay, and entrepreneurship is going to grow, and we're really pushing this as an economic strategy to reduce poverty. We're pushing this as an economic strategy to improve communities and quality of life. So I really believe that, you know, entrepreneurship is on its rise, you know, in spite of a lot of government policies that push against it. And so I think an SBDC will have an even more important role going in the future than it has even in the past. I hope that you feel kind of the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we're consultants at the end of the day, but a lot of times, like I said earlier, I mean, we're therapists.
Right.
People come in with their problems, and we try to figure it out and let them kind of see the light through their own, you know, exploration into those things. So at the end of the day, I really think that we promote an incredible service here, because we're not emotionally attached to, you know, what the clients are doing. So sometimes we can see things from a different perspective, offer different insight. You know, based on whoever their consultant is, they'll have a ton of experience. Like my experience of owning and operating multiple retail locations.
Right.
You know, when I have clients that are looking in that sector, I can tell them real world examples of what I've been through. You know, signing lease negotiations and all these sorts of things. And that's our biggest benefit is we've been through a lot of these things. We've seen a lot of these things, and we can help clients kind of see that as well.
Well, and I hope the audience who are entrepreneurs are hearing, there's no excuse not to at least contact your local SBDC. And so, Matt, again, how do people find the SBDC?
So the best way to do it is if you're in New Jersey, go to NJSBDC.com. You can register and search for the local SBDC center that's within your county region. If you're outside of New Jersey, you'll have a state website as well that will list all of your all of your SBDC centers within that state, and satellite offices that you can get a hold of as well.
Well, Matt, it's been great. We're at the end of time now. You know, I just love the way you answer. You have so much information, and you do it in such a concise way. So I really thank you very much. I'm really excited about working together. We're really going to do some big things, I think, in 2022. And I want to thank the audience for watching Entrepreneur State of Mind. I hope you learned something. I hope you check out the SBDC network. And if you're not an entrepreneur, tell some friends that could really use some advice about SBDCs. So take care, and we will see you next week.